Самарканд – жемчужина.
Samarkand, the pearl, the Asian Rome gone by, city of glorious ancestors, we raise you to the sky. A capital so ancient the legends cling to you, extraordinarily beautiful domes of heavenly blue, minarets that stretch into sky blue space. The court of the Timurids once ruled from this place.
Эти строки говорят об очень
A
многом.
lot is contained in those lines, but it's the history of the ancient city. Today it has its continuation in a new independent Uzbekistan. One of the important events in Samarkand's recent history is the creation of the international, multifunctional tourist center called the Great Silk Road Samarkand and the Eternal City Complex. How it was even possible to implement these incredible projects, it's simply fabulous. It's hard even to imagine that it was possible to create such a world-class tourist center.
Такой туристический центр всемирного значения. История Узбекистана является одной из частью глобальной.
The history of Uzbekistan is one of the chapters, so to speak, in the global history of the development of humankind. And, of course, for me, it's been very exciting the last 2 years or more. First of all, it was a great honor to work on this project, and second, it showed the enormous trust put in me by the leadership of the country, by the corporate client, the aerial company. They gave me a completely free hand and told me, "Babur, you have to create something amazing."
И сказали: Бабур, нужно сделать сказку.
И прежде всего это
First of all, there is the historical ethnographic complex, the Eternal City, a reconstruction of the ancient Uzbek city. Its streets are populated by the foremost national artisans who show and tell all about the ancient handicrafts of Samarkand and other regions of Uzbekistan. The history of Samarkand formed the basis for the history of the Eternal City. Samarkand is one of the world's oldest cities. It was a contemporary of Rome and other of the greatest and most famous cities, rich in history and culture. So, of course, from the start, the concept for this place, for this construction, incorporated the culture and heritage precisely of Samarkand. Then, later, the concept expanded to include the culture and heritage of all Uzbekistan. The cross-functional center includes 8 modern hotels, a congress hall, the Eternal City Complex, an amphitheater, and many other buildings. On its territory one can see wood carvers and artisans expert in ceramics, alabaster plaster carving, papermaking, jewelry, and carpets. Another imposing construction is the International Congress Center on the north bank of the well-known rowing canal. Its scale and scope can be judged by the fact that it contains 11 conference halls, including the 3,700 square meter Grand Hall, an 800 square meter ballroom, and 9 halls of up to 400 square meters each.
9 залов площадью до 400 квадратных метров.
Naturally, we architects and restorers can draft any project knowledgeably, but the question is how it will be executed. Because the tourists coming here, the people visiting these buildings, they see the results of the labor of the artists and decorators. So, in my opinion, we must give all due respect and appreciation to the work of our artisans, working at the highest national level.
в церемонии торжественного открытия
The President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, attended the official opening ceremony. This marvelous center represents a continuation of the architectural traditions established by our great predecessors, he said. I am sure that it will become a symbolic bridge between our glorious history and the Third Renaissance, whose foundations we are laying at the present time. There is a deep reason why the complex was named the Great Silk Road. Its buildings are adorned with historical scenes of the Great Silk Road. The decoration of the Eternal City ensemble, for instance, draws on the scene preserved on the wall of ancient Afrosiab, its frescoes showing a ceremony where the ruler of the Sogdian state is receiving ambassadors from Korea, China, India, and other
Самарканд,
countries.
конечно, безусловно, сам по себе это город-сказка, и это является одной из крупнейших
Samarkand
столиц
is
истории
itself, without a doubt, a fairy tale city and one of the greatest capitals in human history, in the history of huge empires.
человечества. Это, безусловно,
The most important legacy preserved in this city is certainly the tremendous architectural monuments left by the powerful ruling dynasties of the city.
огромное
It was
количество
enriched by a very large number of artists, musicians, and scholars, great masters of their crafts, who were welcomed to the city. In other words, great artists and thinkers from around the world came together here, dreaming to live and create in this city. When we were working, creating this project, we very much wanted all the great artists and craftsmen, musicians and cultural figures of this city to be represented under one roof, so to speak, under the single high blue dome of Samarkand.
Именно здесь, в комплексе
It was here, in the Eternal City complex, that the Council of the Heads of States of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization took place in September 2022. Addressing the guests, our country's president particularly noted, "The SCO's activity going forward must remain focused on wide partnership, and with the conviction that Central Asia must retain its status as the geographical core of the SCO." The construction of such an impressive, large-scale project to build a huge complex on 10 to 12 hectares of land along the Rowing Canal in Samarkand region began in 2019 on the initiative of President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. An international team of experienced architects and engineers was assembled, and the design was drafted after much careful thought. Our country's head visited the site often and gave recommendations on completing the project with all attention to national architectural traditions and making it more convenient and comfortable for visitors. In addition to local qualified builders, specialists joined in the work from Turkey, Great Britain, and Italy. The city is eternal because it is filled with the history of the people living in it. It's impossible to conceive of it without the history of those people, families, heroes, ordinary people, the men, women, and children born in this city. They grow up and make their contribution to the city's development and develop themselves while they live here. They bring something unique of their own. Then the city lives too.
Здесь сразу привлекает внимание и
Visitors to the Eternal City are immediately attracted by the authentically old-style Uzbek bazaar. Nobody can pass by without taking a look at the 40 craft workshops there, representing traditions from all parts of our country. There, in front of tourists' eyes, craftsmen offer master classes in wood carving, pottery, the ancient art of silk paper-making, jewelry, and carpet weaving. The new tourist center will play an important role in increasing the number of foreign tourists to Samarkand. Two major events are taking place in the ancient city this year. The annual meeting of the Board of Governors of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the General Assembly of the World Tourism Organization. Another extremely impressive work of modern art, decorating the territory of the Eternal City, is the sculpture The Sun, one of the most recent works of the famous Samarkand sculptor Yunus Safardiyor. 3D computer versions of the installations have existed for many years, but we managed to bring it to life on the territory of the Eternal City in 6 to 7 months, says the sculptor. The sun is a rotating kinetic sculpture made of bronze and weighing 13 tons. The ceiling in the hall of the Congress Center had to be specially strengthened to support it. The deadlines were really tight. I was a little worried when I took on such a tremendous job that I might not finish in time. Nobody had done anything like it before. I certainly hadn't. It has a lot of internal mechanisms. I had engineers working with mechanics, electronics experts, and now there are programmers working on the programs that control the sun's motion. Kinetic art is one of the 20th century's important cultural developments, allowing a work of art to move and change while the viewer observes it. If in the past, movement in painting or sculpture was merely an artificial effect achieved by visual means, now the movements have become not illusory but actual, with motors and levers, cogwheels, creaking and swaying, hissing and splashing, ropes and plexiglass. The sculpture was created in 3 countries, Great Britain, Russia, and Uzbekistan. The bronze was cast in St. Petersburg, and the mechanism itself was partly manufactured in Moscow. I had this idea, like building a new world. The world is changing very fast, dynamically, and I had a feeling that now is like a turning point, when our world is taking on new characteristics. Uzbekistan is a sun-filled country. I decided to dedicate this work to our native land, especially as today the country is at a new level of development. It's a symbol of our fresh beginning, says the talented sculptor, now well known in many countries where his unique works can be seen. On the eve of the SCO summit in Samarkand, many interesting and intriguing cultural activities were staged to mark the occasion, uniting different kinds of art, with international artists plein air painting together, an exhibition entitled Soul of Samarkand, and a major international symposium of sculptors from different countries. We managed to observe it all and fully appreciate the high level of creativity involved in holding such an event over the course of many days. Famous artists from the SCO member states, from India, Kazakhstan, China, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, and Tajikistan worked with great enthusiasm together with their Uzbek colleagues. I've spent almost a month with the artists, and you know it's been so interesting with them. We were in Samarkand, Bukhara, Shahrisabz, a lot of places, painting from life. For me, you know, as an artist myself, it's been so interesting to see how they, as artists from different parts of the world, see our Uzbekistan. One of the large halls of the Great Silk Road International Tourism University was transformed in front of our eyes. Paintings appeared one after the other. Naturally, the dominant theme was Samarkand. Our guests from abroad worked with great pleasure. The collection was supplemented with exciting pieces painted by the artists during their plein air sessions, with the clearer perspectives that painting from life affords. The first thing they showed us in Samarkand was the famous Registan Square. I was particularly impressed by the inner courtyard of the Sherdor Madrasa, which I have depicted in the first painting. They sense color in such an interesting way. They have such a remarkable color palette. For example, we see how the artists coming from India have a totally different approach, or say those from Russia trained in the academic school. If we look at the way they work in Tajikistan or in Pakistan, they have their own unusual angle, their own approach. We artists from Uzbekistan also participated in the SCO event, and I really liked how they chose their colors. We automatically learned from one another. For 1 month, from 10th of August till 10th of September 2022, the International Sculpture Symposium Samarkand 2022 took place in Vatan Parvar Park. This also was conducted as part of the Spirit of Samarkand, part of the preparations for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and it too proved very productive and successful. Both Uzbek and foreign sculptors took part in the symposium, which was conducted jointly by the Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Heritage of Uzbekistan, the Creative Union of Artists of our country, and the Samarkand provincial government. The sculptors produced some truly marvelous works during these days, using Zarband marble, metal, and other materials. It was the first time the International Sculpture Symposium had been held in Uzbekistan, and it was an outstanding cultural event. The Sculpture Symposium was organized on the initiative of our nation's President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. Its purpose was for the representatives of the SCO member states, while discussing geopolitical issues, also to enjoy the special spirit of Samarkand embodied in the works of art of contemporary artists. Speaking at the opening ceremony, the chairperson of the Creative Union of Artists, Ibrahim Valikhodjayev, noted the significance of the symposium and rated highly the works of the local and foreign sculptors. He also said that the sculptors and artists' best pieces would decorate the exhibition halls, museums, and streets and squares of Samarkand. All the secrets, beauty, and history of the universe are hidden in stones, and it's our job to bring that beauty to the surface. In the opinion of experts, such events strengthen the effectiveness of the reforms that have been introduced in the sphere of tourism, culture, and art in Uzbekistan. We gathered together 4 artists from each of 12 countries. They are reflecting not just our cultural heritage, but our relationship to that cultural heritage. They're interpreting the priceless buildings of our cultural legacy and showing, in large measure through their own spirit, the enormous attention that the government is paying to the development of art and tourism in our country. Samarkand, since ancient times, has been a center for the spiritual, economic, cultural, and scientific exchanges occurring between nations along the whole extent of the Great Silk Road, from East Asia to Northern Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. Now, the Samarkand Summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization has expanded those borders still further. The regular meeting of the Council of the SCO Heads of State was held on 16 September 2022 in the Congress Center of the Great Silk Road International Tourist Complex. For the first time, the summit was conducted in an expanded format, with the leaders of 14 nations taking part. Uzbekistan, as one of the founding countries of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, plays an increasingly important role in its activity. The initiatives of our nation's leader help raise the SCO's potential and international authority while strengthening multidimensional cooperation. In his speech in Samarkand, the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, reported on the results of Uzbekistan's chairmanship of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization during the previous 2 years. As the head of our country noted, more than 80 major events were held during this period. Under Uzbekistan's chairmanship, a host of new formats and cooperation mechanisms were launched within the SCO framework, in areas such as information and communication technology, food security and poverty reduction. Forums, conferences, and other events were held on pressing questions in economics, industry, innovation, tourism, health, and national diplomacy, advancement of gender-based issues, and women's entrepreneurship. Our nation's leader presented a series of concrete proposals and practical initiatives on topical questions of multidimensional cooperation within the SCO framework, a forum of university rectors, days of culture and tourism, joint sports events, and student olympiads. Another proposed initiative was to set up digital platforms for international dialogue, virtual museums, art exhibitions, and scientific conferences. It was proposed to declare 2023 the Year of Tourism to give a fresh impulse to collaboration in this sphere. A virtual 3D museum was created for the first time in Uzbekistan in Samarkand in 2012. It was the virtual museum of Mirzo Ulugh Beg, the observatory. Later, in 2014, the museum in Afrosiyab was created, also 3D. Nowadays, tourists visit them with pleasure before visiting Afrosiyab itself. On the basis of the Samarkand State Museum Reserve, they made a 3D virtual museum, the State Museum of the History and Culture of Uzbekistan, and did the same for the Samarkand Regional Museum, the Afrosiyab Museum, and the Mirzo Ulugh Museum. So, out of the 6 state museums in Samarkand, 4 of them are already done.
Вслед за завершением саммита ШОС глава
Directly
государства
following the close of the SCO summit, the head of state gave instructions to launch an advertising campaign, Samarkand, the tourist gateway of the new Uzbekistan, shown at home and around the world. It was announced on a video conference about measures to raise further the potential of local and international tourism in our country. We conducted major international historical events, the Samarkand Summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, in the newly built tourist center in Samarkand, the president said. In this way, our people and its government demonstrated once again its high cultural and creative potential. It was confidently expected that the new airport, 8 modern hotels, the Congress Hall, park, and other entertainment and recreation complexes built in Samarkand would become the new tourist gateway into the history of our country and a signature initiative of the new Uzbekistan.
Основная задача всего этого комплекса была не просто, опять же, я повторюсь, что
The key purpose of this whole complex was not, I repeat, not merely to build an architectural ensemble, but to make an immersive open-air museum, whose main treasure lay not in the standing monuments and buildings, but the living artists and artisans, the live masters of their crafts, the potters, miniaturists, textile embroiderers, gold embroiderers, and of course, the chance to experience the wonderful Uzbek cuisine and tea houses. And also the Oriental Bazaar, that goes without saying. Accordingly, we also created some large spaces for theatrical and musical performances.
Для шоу также создана была декорация.
We made the theatrical scenery for the show, which, as far as I know, will be permanent at the tourist center. It's a very interesting set. It was designed by the outstanding Russian scenic designer Zinovy Margolin. It's actually, in large part, a reconstruction of the observatory of Ulugh. When we were making it, we took for inspiration the actual drawings by Ulugh himself. In fact, what we made wasn't a full historical reconstruction, but something that gives a good idea of what Ulugh had in mind. And it turns out the construction is absolute genius. Its design is timeless and aesthetically beautiful, while being efficient and functional.
Ну и, конечно, самую большую площадку это большой.
Naturally, the biggest space is the large stage, symbolically shaped like the observatory of Ulugh, with a seating capacity of over 1,500 people. It's a stage which, in principle, could host any number of world-class events.
Нет у мира начала.
The world has no beginning, has no end. When we depart, we leave behind no mark or name. The world existed before us. Eternal it will last. We'll be gone 1,000 years. It will still remain. Truly, a person's life is a mere grain of sand in the ocean of the universe. That's what makes it important, and the little time given us to do something that will stand the test of time. We've told you about a unique tourist complex, which we hope, like the creations of the ancient architects, will be an object of research and a destination for tourists from countries all around the world.